Welcome back to Politically Speaking with Gene Cubison.
And it's one thing to make a new law, it's another thing to make sure that people follow it, logistically speaking. So here to talk about some of the new rules and how they're enforced, defense attorney Vikas Bajaj. Vic, you know, logistically, this is the hard part now. We make the laws, but then somebody's got to be out there enforcing them, making sure people follow the rules. Let's talk about a few of them, starting with minimum wage, because this is one that there are definitely two sides to. Employers are being told that they have to pay a higher wage. Who's out there making sure that they actually do it?
Excellent question, Greg. And here's the deal. We have the City of San Diego that's in charge of enforcing City of San Diego regulations. Now, we know globally, as far as the state of California, the increase in minimum wage only affected certain groups of employers coming, of course, the beginning of 2017. That would be employers who have greater than 26 employees. So for those who have fewer than 26 employees, there is no real effect as far as a statewide regulation. However, the voters in City of San Diego said we want to have higher wages, and that now is $11.50 as of January 1st of this year here in San Diego. So the City of San Diego has their own enforcement division. I believe it'll come down to a funding decision, whether there's enough money in the coffers to actually have enforcement officers knocking on car washes, restaurants, convenience stores, sort of the normal suspects that we see in wage enforcement violation hearings. But of course, understand the Labor Commission, the statewide California Labor Commission Board, is espoused with the duty and the opportunity to take in some of these complaints. Most of these complaints will come from individuals, employees, who feel that they were not honored insofar as the increased wage.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. If an officer isn't getting around to every business, this really is up to the employee to raise the issue.
Oh, absolutely. And usually it's not raised in real time. It's usually raised when there's a difficulty with the employer, where there's a termination, a wrongful termination, or a voluntary quit. And then you see the complaints coming in through the Labor Board Commission here in San Diego. I think that's the way we'll see it most often than not.
Cell phones. We can't use them in our car anymore, at least in our hands. We have to mount them. But how difficult is that to enforce? Are police, CHP actually going to be out there cracking down? Absolutely.
You know, I've had a very intimate conversation with an individual at the San Diego Sheriff's Department last night, and we were talking about these new laws. How are we going to enforce them? How are they, law enforcement, going to enforce these? Is it worth it to pull someone over when the penalty is a $20 ticket or a $20 fine?
To most people, probably not.
Exactly. But you have to understand, from a law enforcement officer's point of view, it's essentially a golden goose. It's a goose that lays a golden egg, because it could just be a simple vehicle code violation, using your cell phone when you shouldn't. It's a vehicle code violation which gives rise to an officer's ability to stop the vehicle. What happens from that point on is to be determined. Many times people who are distracted drivers cause serious injuries and death to others. So it's a mandatory enforcement, I believe, a policy that's going to come down not only with state police officers, but also with county sheriff's deputies as well.
And one more in the limited time that we have. Let's stay on the roads, because marijuana is going to be a big issue here and sorting this all out. But let's talk about the roads specifically. It's going to be a trick to enforce driving under the influence of marijuana, right?
Without a doubt. If you look at the city attorney who actually has to prosecute these cases within the city limits, and the district attorney that prosecutes these cases within the county limits, it's a very difficult area to secure a prosecution. The reason is fundamentally, when we have an alcohol driving offense, we have a certain blood alcohol level that is known by the Department of Insurance, it's known by the Department of Motor Vehicles, and it is supported by forensic evidence, both on state and federal law. When we talk about an individual driving under the influence of marijuana, however, we do not have a state standard. And that's the issue. Yep. So that these cases all depend on a law enforcement officer's observations. Therefore, they're very hard to prosecute.
All right. Well, a lot to come on this, because those are three of the dozens of laws that took effect in 2017. Vic, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure.
A lot more to come. Straight ahead on Politically Speaking, what does a President Trump administration mean for California lawmakers and Californians in general? State Senators Tony Atkins and Joel Anderson are here in our studio with a look at their year ahead. Also, what are some of the biggest issues facing San Diego going to be in the coming year? We're talking Chargers, Balboa Park, and a lot more likely. The voice of San Diego's Scott Lewis takes a look into the future when we continue Politically Speaking.